Well, experts from across the southern African food industry this week released a report exploring potential future scenarios for the country's food industry. The report, entitled Transformative Scenarios Report, The Future of Food 2015 to 2030, does highlight some dire current realities, while also noting that the system could be recast with political courage, private sector initiative and strong advocacy and support from civil society. Well, for more, we have in our Sea Point studios, that's Tatiana von Bormann, the food manager at the World Wildlife Fund for Nature. Good afternoon, Tatiana, and thank you for your time on the PM News Desk.
Good afternoon, Krishni.
How uncertain is the future of food production in the country right now, Tatiana?
Well, Krishni, that's exactly what we sought to try and understand with these scenarios. Right now, South Africa produces enough food. Last year, we were, for the first time, a net importer of food. But for the most part, we actually have a agricultural production level that is very good. Yet, there are clear indications that this is a system that is heading towards crisis and could fairly dramatically be tipped into crisis that would change our food security from an already tenuous state to something quite dire.
What are some of the critical concerns or risk factors that one would take into account, Tatiana?
Well, there's a number of them. Food and food production is a highly interconnected and interrelated system, but certainly the environment, the base from which our food is drawn, policy and regulation and issues around land reform, land ownership. Our research has pointed to a very concerning nutrition transition, which is a shift increasingly towards high fat, high salts, processed foods. And these are just some of the issues that are potentially going to have a high impact on the food system.
In a country like ours, we should not have people dying of hunger or not sure where their next meal will come from. Yet that's exactly what's happening. Why is that? Can you break it down for us?
You're absolutely right, Krishni. There's no reason from a production perspective why we should have such high hunger levels. However, we also have a very high Gini coefficient in this country, so a vast difference between the income of the poor and an increasingly small, rich population. And food access is primarily it's about affordability, access to good, fresh, nutritious food. And the way our society is structured, the way our urban and rural situation is in this country, means that people are getting up very early in the morning, having to travel long distances to work, having to access food on their way to work, or unable to access that food at all because of no income. You know, we have 25% unemployment within our workforce. So the situation for people who have no ability to afford food is that they are reduced to begging and to handouts.
Tatiana, you've tabled 4 food scenarios. Can you take us through these very briefly?
So the food scenarios are built around what is seen as the crucial issues in the food system. So the first one is the natural resource base from which our food is drawn, and it looks at the increasing likelihood of a long dry weather cycle and droughts and what the impact of that would have on water quantity and water quality. From there, we look at food production, who's producing the food, how it's being produced, and the implications for land reform on the long-term productivity in South Africa. And then the scenarios pan out to the broader issue of the political economy, food within the political economy, and very much foregrounded by the issue of pricing and how food is priced, where the profit is in the system, how the food fits within the global markets, and the potential impact in the global markets on our local food systems. And finally, it looks at the very crucial issue of nutrition and the growing burden of disease and malnutrition and the implications over the next 15 years for South Africa.
Tatiana von Bormann, the WWF's food manager, thank you so much for your time on the PM News Desk.